The stars had never seemed so bright to Captain Maria Santos as she watched the alien ships approach Earth. Through the window of the orbital station, she could see 12 massive vessels moving slowly toward their home planet. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls gleamed with strange metals that caught the sunlight and threw it back in colors she had never seen before. "They're beautiful," whispered Lieutenant beside her, "and terrifying." Maria nodded. After months of radio contact, the aliens were finally here. The Galactic Confederation had accepted humanity's request to join their group of civilized worlds. At least, that's what they called it. Maria knew the truth was more complicated. Down on Earth, Ambassador Sarah was getting ready to meet these visitors. Sarah had spent years learning about alien cultures from their transmissions. She knew exactly what to say and what not to say. Most importantly, she knew what not to show them. The lead ship was from a species called the. Their commander, Supreme Admiral, had a voice like grinding metal when he spoke over the communication system. "Humans of Earth," he said, "we come to welcome you to the greater galaxy. Prepare to receive our representatives." Sarah smoothed her simple blue dress and checked her notes one last time. Everything had to look right. The meeting room was decorated with Earth's finest art, but nothing too advanced. The paintings showed peaceful landscapes. The sculptures were made of wood and stone, not metal or advanced materials. Even the furniture looked handmade. When the alien shuttle landed, Sarah was waiting with a small group of scientists and diplomats. No soldiers, no weapons visible anywhere. Just peaceful humans eager to make friends. Supreme Admiral was taller than any human with gray skin and 4 arms. His uniform was covered in military decorations. Behind him came other aliens. Some looked like giant insects. Others had smooth, pale skin and large black eyes. All of them carried devices that were clearly weapons, even if they tried to hide them. "Welcome to Earth," Sarah said with a warm smile. "We are honored by your visit." Looked around the landing area. His small, red eyes missed nothing. "Your defensive capabilities are minimal," he said. It wasn't a question. Sarah nodded sadly. "We are a peaceful people. We have some orbital stations for protection against asteroids and space debris. A few patrol ships to help lost travelers. Nothing like your magnificent fleet." This was exactly what expected to hear. The aliens had been watching Earth for weeks. They had seen the small number of human ships in orbit. They had detected the weak energy signatures from human weapons. They had counted the few defense platforms around the planet. By galactic standards, humans were barely armed at all. Envoy, a tall alien with skin that changed colors, stepped forward. They were known as diplomats and peacekeepers. "We understand your people are new to space travel," she said in a gentle voice. "The galaxy can be dangerous. The Confederation exists to protect species like yours." Over the next few hours, Sarah gave the aliens a tour of human achievements. They visited hospitals where doctors showed them new medicines. They saw farms with improved crops that could grow in harsh conditions. They toured art museums and listened to human music. Everything was designed to show that humans were smart and creative, but not dangerous. The aliens were impressed by human culture, but not worried about human power. In the military briefing that evening, spoke to his officers through their private communication system. "The humans are typical for a new species," he reported. "They have some clever ideas about medicine and farming. Their art is interesting, but their military is a joke. I counted maybe 20 ships capable of real combat. Their weapons are simple projectile systems and basic energy weapons. No shield technology, no advanced armor." Supreme War Coordinator Vex, speaking from the home world, was pleased. "Excellent. They will accept our territorial requirements without resistance. New species always do once they see real military power." But the aliens didn't know what they couldn't see. High above Earth's North Pole, the research station looked like a simple science facility. Inside, Admiral watched the alien ships through sensors that were far more advanced than anything the visitors suspected. "How long do we keep this up?" asked his second-in-command, Colonel Torres. Smiled grimly. "As long as necessary. Let them think we're harmless farmers and artists. The longer they believe that, the better." In hidden bases around the solar system, the real human fleet waited in silence. Ships that could move faster than anything the aliens had ever seen. Weapons that could punch through any known defense. Technologies that the Confederation had never imagined. Humanity had been listening to alien communications for 50 years before making contact. They knew about the Confederation's rules. New species were given small territories and limited rights. They had to follow laws made by older, more powerful civilizations. Most importantly, they had to limit their military development. But humans had never been good at following other people's rules. Sarah knew all this as she hosted a farewell dinner for the alien representatives. She served simple food and spoke about humanity's hopes for peace and friendship. She asked innocent questions about Confederation law and trade agreements. She acted like a primitive native meeting advanced beings for the first time. The aliens ate her food and answered her questions. They made their plans for how to control this new species. They decided which star systems humans would be allowed to keep, and which ones the Confederation would take for administrative purposes. As the alien ships prepared to leave, gave Sarah one last warning disguised as friendly advice. "The galaxy has many rules," he said. "Species that follow them prosper, species that don't. Well, let's just say they learn to follow them eventually." Sarah nodded like a scared child being lectured by adults. "We understand, Supreme Admiral. Humans just want to learn and grow. We would never cause trouble." Was satisfied. Another weak species properly intimidated. In a few months, the Confederation would present humanity with their new laws and territorial limits. The humans would accept them, just like everyone else did. As the alien fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Sarah finally allowed herself to smile. The first phase was complete. The aliens thought they understood humanity. They thought humans were weak and frightened. They had no idea how wrong they were. In 6 months, the Confederation would be back with demands and threats. They expected quick surrender from the primitive humans. Instead, they were going to get the surprise of their lives. 6 months after first contact, the message arrived exactly when Ambassador Sarah expected it. The holographic display in the United Earth Council chamber showed the seal of the Galactic Confederation. Every human leader on Earth and in the colonies gathered to hear what they already knew was coming. Envoy appeared in the projection, her skin a formal gray color that meant serious business. Behind her stood Supreme Admiral. His 4 arms crossed in what humans had learned was a threatening gesture. "People of Earth," began, "the Confederation Council has reviewed your territorial claims. We have decided that 3 of your star systems must be transferred to Confederation control. The systems contain rare minerals needed for galactic commerce. As a new member species, you will receive fair compensation." The star systems she named were humanity's 3 colonies. Thousands of humans lived there. Millions more had planned to move there in the coming years. The fair compensation was a joke, barely enough to pay for moving people back to Earth. President Martinez of United Earth stood up slowly. She was an elderly woman who had spent her whole life in politics, but she had never faced anything like this. "Envoy," she said carefully, "these systems have been our homes for over 20 years. Our people built cities there. They raised families there. Surely we can find another solution." Stepped forward. His red eyes gleamed with something that might have been amusement. "This is not a negotiation, human. This is how the galaxy works. Strong species make the rules. Weak species follow them. You are weak." In the silence that followed, Sarah felt her heart pounding. This was the moment they had planned for. Everything depended on what happened next. President Martinez looked around the room at the other human leaders. Some of them looked scared. Others looked angry. All of them were waiting for her decision. "We need time to consider your request," Martinez said finally. "You have 72 hours," replied. "After that, we will consider your silence as agreement. Confederation law allows us to take control of non-compliant territories by force." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in tense quiet. For several minutes, nobody spoke. Then Admiral stood up from his seat in the back of the room. "Well," he said with a slight smile, "I guess it's time." 3 days later, 30 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Each ship was a kilometer long, bristling with weapons that could destroy cities. The fleet was commanded by Supreme Admiral himself, who expected this to be a simple show of force. "No species has ever resisted a Confederation fleet," he told his officers. "The humans will surrender the moment they see us. Then we can get on with more important business." But as the alien fleet moved toward Earth, they found something unexpected waiting for them. 12 human ships sat in formation between the aliens and their home planet. The ships were much smaller than the vessels, and they looked almost fragile by comparison. Admiral sat in the command chair of the lead human ship, the UES Defiance. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. They had trained for this moment for years. "Incoming communication from the alien fleet," reported Lieutenant Park at the communications station. "Put it on screen," said. His ugly face appeared on the main display. "Human vessels, you are blocking the path of a Confederation enforcement fleet. Move aside immediately or be destroyed." Leaned back in his chair and smiled. "Supreme Admiral, good to see you again. I'm afraid we can't do that." "Are you insane?" His voice rose to an angry roar. "You have 12 ships, I have 30. My smallest vessel could destroy your entire fleet." "Maybe," said calmly, "but you seem to have misunderstood something fundamental about humanity. We don't surrender, we adapt." Stared at the human admiral for a long moment. In all his years of military service, no inferior species had ever spoken to him like this. "Last warning, human. Stand down or be destroyed." "No," said simply. The word hung in space between the two fleets like a thrown gauntlet. In the command ship, officers looked at each other in disbelief. In the human ships, crews tensed at their battle stations. His face turned a darker shade of gray. "Fire warning shots. Let them see what real weapons can do." 3 ships opened fire with plasma cannons. Brilliant streams of energy lanced across the empty space toward the human formation. The shots were carefully aimed to miss. They were meant to scare, not kill. But something impossible happened. The human ships moved. They didn't just dodge the plasma bolts. They seemed to know exactly where the shots would go before they were fired. The 12 human vessels flowed around the energy beams like water around rocks. Their movements were too smooth, too coordinated for ships that size. "What the hell?" muttered Commander Vex from his position at the tactical station. "How did they move that fast?" Was asking himself the same question. Human ships weren't supposed to be that maneuverable. According to all their intelligence, human technology was primitive. "Scan those ships again," he ordered. "I want to know how they're moving like that." The results of the new scans made his blood run cold. The human ships weren't using simple chemical rockets or even basic fusion drives. They were using technology that they couldn't identify. "Sir," reported his science officer, "their hulls are showing energy patterns we don't understand. It's like they're made of completely different materials than we thought." On the UES Defiance, Admiral watched the alien fleet through sensors that could see things they never suspected. "They're getting nervous," he told his crew. "Time for the next phase." He opened a channel to all human ships. "All vessels, this is Admiral. Execute defensive pattern Alpha. Show them what our primitive technology can really do." The 12 human ships suddenly burst into action. What had looked like simple metal hulls began to change. Armor plates shifted and flowed like liquid metal. Weapon ports opened in places where the aliens had seen only smooth surfaces. Energy readings spiked as human ships powered up systems that shouldn't exist. On the command ship, alarms began to sound. "Sir," shouted the tactical officer, "the human ships are powering weapons we can't identify. Energy output is climbing beyond our measurement capability." Stared at his displays in growing shock. The weak, primitive humans were revealing technology that made no sense. Their ships were transforming before his eyes into something that looked more dangerous than anything in the Confederation fleet. "This is impossible," he whispered. Admiral's voice came over the communication channel, calm as ever. "Supreme Admiral, you wanted to see our defensive capabilities. This is us being peaceful. Trust me, you don't want to see what happens when we're not." For the first time in his long military career, Supreme Admiral felt something he had never experienced before when facing a supposedly inferior species. He felt afraid. Supreme Admiral stared at his display screens in disbelief. The numbers made no sense. The 12 human ships that had looked so weak and primitive just minutes ago were now showing energy readings that matched his most powerful battleships. "This has to be a trick," he muttered to his officers. "Run the scans again." But the results were the same. Somehow, the humans had been hiding their true capabilities. Their ships weren't just armed, they were armed with technology they had never seen before. Commander Vex stepped closer to his admiral. "Sir, what are your orders?" His pride was hurt. No inferior species had ever dared to threaten him like this. No primitive civilization had ever made him feel uncertain. He had conquered dozens of worlds and forced hundreds of species to submit to Confederation rule. "Fire again," he ordered. "Real shots this time, target their lead ship. Let's see how tough they really are." The UES Defiance shuddered slightly as plasma cannons locked onto it. Admiral felt his crew tense around him, but his voice remained calm. "Steady, everyone. Remember your training. This is what we've been preparing for." The alien plasma bolt struck the Defiance's hull with enough energy to melt through normal armor. But the human ship's hull didn't melt. Instead, it seemed to absorb the energy and scatter it harmlessly into space. The armor plating rippled like water where the shots hit, then returned to its original shape without any damage. On the command ship, every officer stared at their screens in shock. "Direct hits, sir," reported the weapons officer. "But no damage. Their hull is dispersing our plasma fire like it's nothing." "How is that possible?" demanded. He got his answer when the human ships began to return fire. What came from their weapons wasn't energy beams or plasma bolts. It was something much more frightening: solid projectiles moving at impossible speeds. The first kinetic rounds from humans struck the shields like hammers hitting glass. The aliens' energy barriers, which could stop any known weapon in the galaxy, collapsed instantly under the brutal impact of pure mass traveling at relativistic speeds. "Shields down on ships 7, 12, and 15, screamed the tactical officer. "How are their projectiles moving that fast?" But that was only the beginning. As the human ships continued their attack, they released clouds of small objects that the sensors identified as primitive drones. Almost laughed with relief. Surely these simple machines would be easy to destroy. He was wrong. The primitive drones moved with intelligence that no simple machine should possess. They avoided point defense fire, coordinated their attacks, and seemed to learn from each encounter. When the aliens tried to jam their signals, the drones continued operating independently. When the aliens tried to shoot them down, the drones adapted their flight patterns. "Sir," called the science officer, his voice shaking, "these aren't just drones. They're showing signs of advanced artificial intelligence. Each one is making independent tactical decisions." 3 ships suddenly reported critical damage as the human drones found weak points in their armor and exploited them with precision that no biological pilot could match. The aliens realized with growing horror that they weren't fighting against human pilots. They were fighting against thousands of artificial minds working together. Admiral watched the battle progress with satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. The aliens were seeing human technology for the first time, and they clearly didn't like what they saw. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Park from the communications station, "we're receiving a transmission from one of the alien escort ships. It's not from Admiral." "Put it through," said. A new alien face appeared on the screen. This one had pale, smooth skin and large black eyes, one of the diplomats who had visited Earth months ago. "Human Admiral," the alien said urgently, "this is Envoy aboard the diplomatic vessel. Please, you must stop this attack. We need to talk." Raised an eyebrow. "We're not attacking, Envoy, we're defending ourselves. Your Admiral fired first." "But this is impossible." Calm diplomatic mask was slipping. "Your technology, it doesn't match our intelligence reports. How are you doing this?" "Maybe your intelligence was wrong," replied calmly. "Or maybe we're just better at hiding things than you thought." On the command ship, Supreme Admiral was learning the same lesson. His fleet was being systematically outfought by 12 ships that shouldn't have been able to challenge even one of his vessels. His weapons couldn't penetrate human armor. His shields couldn't stop human attacks. His tactics, refined over centuries of warfare, were useless against enemies who seemed to predict his every move. "Sir," shouted his tactical officer, "ships 19 and 23 are reporting engine failures. The human weapons are targeting our propulsion systems with impossible accuracy." "How can they see our weak points?" demanded. "Our ship designs are classified." He didn't know that humans had been intercepting and analyzing communications for decades. Every ship design, every tactical manual, every weakness in Confederation technology had been studied, and by human intelligence services. The aliens had unknowingly given their enemies the blueprint for their own defeat. Another alarm sounded as one of the human ships did something that made the sensors go crazy. The UES Intrepid seemed to fold space around itself and appear behind the alien formation in the blink of an eye. "Faster-than-light jump inside a gravity well," screamed the science officer. "That's supposed to be impossible." But the humans were doing it anyway. Their ships moved through space using principles that the Confederation had never mastered. While alien vessels were limited by the known laws of physics, human ships bent those laws to their will. The tide of battle turned completely when Admiral decided to end the demonstration. The 12 human ships suddenly stopped their individual attacks and began moving in perfect formation. Their weapons synchronized, targeting specific points on the alien ships with mathematical precision. "All vessels," broadcast on an open channel, "you have 10 seconds to power down your weapons and withdraw to safe distance. If you continue this fight, we will disable your entire fleet." Supreme Admiral looked around his bridge at the damage reports flooding in from his ships. 3 vessels were dead in space. 7 more were badly damaged. His most powerful fleet was being destroyed by an enemy he had thought would surrender without a fight. For the first time in his career, he gave an order he had never thought he would have to give. "All ships cease fire and withdraw. Fall back to minimum safe distance." As the fleet limped away from the human formation, stared at the tactical display in shock. 12 human ships had just defeated 30 of his best vessels without taking any damage themselves. "Send an emergency message to High Command," he told his communications officer. "Tell them we need reinforcements. Tell them the humans are not what they seem." "What should I tell them about our losses, sir?" Closed his 4 eyes in shame. "Tell them we have been completely outclassed by a species we thought was primitive. Tell them everything we thought we knew about human capabilities was wrong." And what about the territorial demands? Looked at the human ships still holding formation between his fleet and Earth. Admiral's calm voice echoed in his memory. This is us being peaceful. Tell High Command, he said quietly, that we may have made a very serious mistake. The emergency meeting of the Confederation High Council lasted for 3 straight days. Representatives from 12 alien species argued, shouted, and demanded answers about what had happened at Earth. The reports from Supreme Admiral seemed impossible, but the battle recordings didn't lie. 30 ships, said War Coordinator Vex, his voice filled with disbelief. 30 of our best warships defeated by 12 human vessels. This changes everything we thought we knew about their capabilities. High Chancellor, leader of the Confederation Council, studied the tactical displays with his ancient eyes. He had lived for over 400 years and had never seen anything like this. The humans deceived us completely. They made us believe they were weak while hiding technology that surpasses our own. We cannot let this stand, declared Admiral of the Hegemony Fleet. If other species learn that humans can defeat Confederation forces, it will encourage rebellion throughout the galaxy. We must crush them before they inspire others to resist our rule. The Council voted unanimously. A massive fleet would be assembled, the largest military force the Confederation had ever gathered. 200 ships from 6 different species, including the most advanced dreadnoughts in the galaxy. They would arrive at Earth in overwhelming numbers and end human resistance once and for all. This time, promised High Chancellor, there will be no surprises. We will bring enough firepower to destroy their entire solar system if necessary. 3 weeks later, the largest fleet in galactic history dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 200 warships stretched across space in battle formation, their combined firepower capable of destroying entire worlds. Fleet Admiral, the Confederation's most experienced military commander, stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Galactic Supremacy. He had conquered 40 star systems and never lost a single battle. Looking at his vast fleet, he felt confident that this would be the shortest campaign of his career. Begin sensor sweeps, he ordered. I want to know the location of every human ship in this system. What the sensors found made no sense at all. Sir, reported the tactical officer, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the asteroid belt. There are structures there, big ones. Mining stations, said dismissively. We already knew humans were extracting metals from asteroids. But as his ships moved deeper into the solar system, the truth became impossible to ignore. The mining stations were revealing themselves to be military bases. Huge weapons platforms emerged from hiding places among the asteroids, each one larger than a Confederation battleship. Sir, shouted the sensor operator, those aren't mining facilities. They're defensive installations, hundreds of them. On Mars, what the aliens had thought were research colonies suddenly transformed. The surface of the planet was covered with military structures that had been hidden under fake civilian buildings. Massive cannon barrels, each 1 kilometer long, rose from concealed positions and pointed toward the incoming fleet. But the biggest shock came from Luna, Earth's moon. The entire near side of the satellite opened like a flower, revealing the largest military complex the galaxy had ever seen. Weapon emplacements that could destroy capital ships lined the lunar surface. Launch bays big enough for battleships prepared to release their contents. This is impossible, whispered Admiral. Intelligence said they had minimal defenses. Where did all this come from? He got his answer when Admiral's voice came over the communication system. But this time, the human wasn't commanding just 12 ships. The sensors were detecting over 400 human vessels of various sizes, appearing from hiding places throughout the solar system. Fleet Admiral said calmly, "Welcome to the Sol system. I am Admiral of the United Earth Defense Force. You seem to have brought quite a lot of ships." tried to maintain his confidence. "Admiral, you are facing the combined might of 6 Confederation species. Surrender now and your people will be treated with mercy." Slav came through the speakers. "Admiral, you're making the same mistake everyone else has made. You think you understand what you're looking at. You don't. I see a system with impressive defenses, admitted, but we still outnumber you." "Do you?" asked. "Computer, show our guest the full defensive grid." What happened next broke every assumption the aliens had about human technology. Energy readings throughout the solar system spiked to levels that registered as impossible on Confederation instruments. The space around Earth lit up as thousands of hidden weapons platforms revealed themselves. Orbital defense rings that had looked like simple satellites showed their true nature as massive weapon arrays. The asteroid belt wasn't just hiding bases. It was one giant defensive network. Every rock larger than a building had been turned into a fortress. The space between Earth and Mars was filled with interlocking fields of fire that could destroy anything that tried to approach. "Sweet merciful stars," breathed Science Officer. "Sir, the energy output we're reading would require the industrial capacity of an entire galactic sector. How did they build all this without anyone noticing?" But the worst revelation was yet to come. Admiral appeared on the main screen of his flagship, and behind him was a sight that made the alien commander's blood turn cold. Through the window of the human command center could see Earth itself. The planet was surrounded by layers of defensive structures that turned it into the most heavily fortified world in known space. Energy shields that could stop asteroid impacts wrapped around the entire globe. Orbital platforms with weapons that physics hung in perfect formation around the planet. Earth wasn't just defended. It was a fortress world that made the Confederation's most secure bases look like children's toys. "You wanted to see our strength," said. "This is humanity at peace, Admiral. This is what we build when we're not trying to hurt anyone. You really don't want to see us at war." Admiral stared at his tactical displays in growing horror. His fleet of 200 ships was facing defensive systems that could destroy 1,000 vessels. The humans had built the most powerful military force in galactic history while pretending to be peaceful farmers and artists. "This is your final warning," continued. "Leave our system now, and we can still talk about this like civilized beings. Stay, and we'll have to protect ourselves." His pride as a military commander warred with his common sense. He had never retreated from any battle, but he had also never faced an enemy this powerful. "You're bluffing," he said finally. "No species could build defenses like this in secret. It's impossible." Nodded sadly. "I was hoping you'd see reason. Computer, give Admiral a demonstration. Target the dead moon in Sector 7. Single shot, minimum power." A human destroyer, tiny compared to the massive alien dreadnoughts, turned toward a lifeless rock floating in space about the size of Earth's moon. It fired once. The moon didn't explode. It didn't break apart. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a solid chunk of rock and metal. The next moment there was nothing but a slowly expanding cloud of particles. The Confederation fleet watched in absolute silence as the demonstration ended. The most powerful weapons in their arsenal could crack planets. The humans had just erased a moon from existence with what they called minimum power. "Admiral," said quietly, "you have 1 hour to begin withdrawing from our system. After that, we'll consider your presence an act of war." For the first time in his long military career, Fleet Admiral gave the order he had sworn he would never give. "All ships prepare to withdraw. We're leaving." As the massive Confederation fleet began its retreat, stared at Earth's defensive grid one last time. The humans had been preparing for this day for decades, building in secret while the galaxy believed them to be weak. "Send a message to High Command," he told his communications officer. "Tell them we need to completely reassess our relationship with humanity. Tell them that everything we thought we knew was wrong. What should I tell them about our mission, sir? Watched human ships moving through their defensive formations with impossible coordination. Tell them that the humans just taught the entire galaxy a new definition of military power. The news of humanity's military strength spread through the galaxy faster than the fleeing Confederation ships. On every alien world, emergency meetings were called. Ancient alliances were questioned. Military strategies that had worked for thousands of years were suddenly worthless. On the home world, Supreme War Coordinator Vex stared at the reports from both failed missions to Earth. His greatest admirals had been defeated by a species that wasn't even supposed to have real weapons. The impossible had become reality. How could our intelligence be so wrong? He demanded of his officers. General, Head of Intelligence, looked ashamed. Sir, we analyzed everything we could see, but the humans were showing us only what they wanted us to see. While we were watching their simple patrol ships and basic orbital platforms, they were building the most advanced military force in the galaxy. But where? Vex slammed his fist on the table. How do you hide construction on that scale? The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep in the intelligence archives, analysts found transmissions that humans had been broadcasting for decades, communications they had dismissed as primitive entertainment. Radio shows, television programs, internet discussions, all of them talking openly about space exploration, military technology, and defensive strategies. They were planning this in public, whispered intelligence analyst as she reviewed the old human broadcasts. They discussed faster-than-light drive technology on their entertainment networks. They shared theoretical weapon designs through their global communication system. We thought it was all fantasy. It wasn't fantasy, General realized with growing horror. It was research and development happening in plain sight. While we were analyzing their military capabilities, their entire civilization was working together to build something we couldn't imagine. Similar discoveries were being made on every Confederation world. The found human medical broadcasts that described healing technologies decades ahead of galactic standards. The hegemony discovered human manufacturing techniques that could build ships faster and stronger than anything they had ever seen. The truth was impossible to ignore. Humanity hadn't just hidden their military strength. They had surpassed every other species in the galaxy while pretending to be primitive newcomers. 3 days after the failed invasion of Earth, the Confederation High Council called an emergency session. For the first time in galactic history, they were meeting to discuss how to deal with a species that was stronger than all of them combined. High Chancellor looked older than his 400 years as he addressed the council. We face a crisis unlike any in our history. The humans have revealed capabilities that make our greatest achievements look like children's toys. We must decide how to proceed. We could form an alliance of all Confederation species, suggested Admiral. Together, we might match their strength. With what? Demanded War Coordinator Vex. They just destroyed a moon with a single shot from their smallest warship. They have defensive systems that our combined fleets cannot penetrate. An alliance would only give them more targets to destroy if we anger them. The truth was bitter but undeniable. Humanity had achieved something no species in galactic history had ever accomplished. They had become powerful enough to dictate terms to the rest of the galaxy. What do they want? Asked Diplomatic Advisor. Have they made any demands? The answer came in the form of a message that arrived as the council was meeting. Ambassador Sarah appeared on the main display, still wearing her simple clothes and friendly smile. But everyone watching knew that behind her pleasant appearance was the representative of the galaxy's new superpower. Honored members of the Confederation Council, she began, humanity appreciates your interest in our defensive capabilities. We hope this demonstration has helped clarify our position in galactic affairs. High Chancellor leaned forward. Ambassador, what are humanity's intentions? Will you use your strength to conquer other worlds? Sarah's smile never wavered. Chancellor, humans prefer cooperation to conquest. We have no interest in ruling other species. We simply want to be treated as equals, not as subjects to be controlled and limited by others. What does that mean in practical terms? Asked. It means the territorial demands made 6 months ago are permanently rejected, Sarah replied firmly. It means humanity will explore and settle space according to our own decisions, not Confederation rules designed to keep us weak. And it means that any future attempts to intimidate or threaten Earth will be met with appropriate responses. The council members looked at each other nervously. They were hearing something that had never happened before in galactic history, a species dictating terms to the Confederation instead of accepting them. And what about trade? Asked Economic Advisor. What about diplomatic relations? Sarah's expression brightened. We're very interested in peaceful trade and cultural exchange. Humanity has many technologies and ideas that could benefit all galactic species. We're willing to share our advances with civilizations that treat us with respect. The carrot and stick were both clearly visible. Cooperation would bring amazing benefits. Hostility would bring consequences that no species could survive. Over the following weeks, the Confederation's response became clear. One by one, alien species sent ambassadors to Earth requesting trade agreements and friendship treaties. They offered cultural exchange programs. The hegemony proposed joint exploration missions. Even the proud asked for military cooperation agreements. The species that had planned to divide human territory among themselves were now competing to become humanity's closest allies. But the biggest change came when High Chancellor himself traveled to Earth. The ancient leader of the Confederation, who had never left his home world for diplomatic meetings, personally requested an audience with human leaders. President Martinez welcomed him in the same simple meeting room where the aliens had first threatened humanity. But this time, the balance of power was completely different. Chancellor, Martinez said formally, what can Earth do for the Confederation? Struggled with words he had never thought he would have to say. President Martinez, the Confederation Council would like to offer humanity a permanent seat on our governing body, not as junior members but as equal partners in galactic leadership. It was an offer that had never been made to any species in galactic history. The Confederation had always been ruled by the original founding species, with newer civilizations accepting whatever role they were given. President Martinez looked at Ambassador, who nodded slightly. Chancellor, we accept, but with conditions. Name them, said quietly. No more territorial restrictions on human expansion, no more limits on our military development, and no more threats against species that choose to govern themselves rather than accept Confederation rule. Felt the weight of galactic history changing around him. For thousands of years, the Confederation had ruled through superior firepower and the threat of conquest. Now they were being forced to rule through cooperation and mutual respect. Agreed, he said finally. As the meeting ended and the formal agreements were signed, Sarah walked with the alien chancellor to his transport ship. You know, she said conversationally, this could have all been avoided if you had just treated us fairly from the beginning. Looked at the human ambassador with something approaching respect. Ambassador, may I ask you something? Of course. How long had your people been planning this? Sarah smiled the same friendly smile she had worn during humanity's first contact with the aliens. Chancellor, we've been preparing for this conversation since the day we first heard your radio transmissions 50 years ago. We knew eventually someone would come to Earth, and we knew they would probably try to control us. We decided it would be better to be ready. As the alien ship departed Earth, carrying news of humanity's new position in galactic affairs, Sarah stood in the observation deck and watched it disappear into faster-than-light travel. Behind her, Admiral joined her at the window. Think they've learned their lesson? He asked. Sarah nodded. They've learned that humans don't surrender. They've learned that we prepare for threats instead of just hopping they'll go away. Most importantly, they've learned that the galaxy is big enough for everyone, as long as everyone respects everyone else. And if they forget? Sarah's smile became a little less friendly. Then we'll have to remind them, but somehow I don't think they're going to forget anytime soon. Outside the window, human ships moved through space with the confidence that came from strength. The galaxy had a new order now, one based on mutual respect rather than fear, and at the heart of that new order was a simple truth that every species would now remember. Never underestimate humanity.